Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. We are back as a squadron here, coming back to Nate after pulling it off by himself and a little bit of Mo Nawara in there as well. Thanks to those guys for holding it down. We're looking at playa props in this video. We also have best bets up as we do each and every weekday. So make sure to subscribe to that page and continue to follow along with us all season and into the postseason. Also want you to head to thelines.com and use that prop finder tool that we have under the NBA tab. Make sure you're getting the best juice available to you from all of these books that are giving us bets this NBA season. Nate, let's go ahead and get right into your first play a prop for tonight.
And I will say 4-0 the last 2 days to start the week without you, Josh. I hope we can keep it going as a collaborative. But yeah, first one I pivoted to late. I'm going to take John Collins under 16.5 points, which is minus 120 in most books because the number is kind of high. He's only gone over this. I mean, he has gone over this in 3 straight, and I don't really care about the matchup. Like, what I look at is it's only 18% usage, and I just don't see him getting heavy usage just because he is going to get a ton of playing time and a ton of rebounding opportunities, which he has been cashing in on lately. So that's why I'm just going with the points. I mean, a Bulls Jazz game with a lower total, 223, does indicate lots of rebounds going both ways, although the Bulls play at a very slow pace, so stats harder to come by in general. But I mean, the Bulls, they allow the fewest paint points in the league, right up there with Milwaukee now since the turnaround. They're only allowing 42 paint points since the All-Star break, 5th fewest points to center in their last 15. I think Vooch is a bit underrated as an individual defender, but a lot of this is just scheme, right? They do allow the most 3-point attempts. They allow plenty of movement on the perimeter. And when you're the Jazz, now without Markkanen, of course, and without Kessler, which is why Collins is locked into those big minutes, but like, who's going to get the usage? It's still the guards. It's still Sexton, Clarkson, if he's good, and Keontae George, who, you know, both of them were battling an illness. But if they have him out there, like, they want to see what Keontae George can do. They're not playing for this season. They don't want to feed John Collins, who doesn't have a back-to-the-basket game anyway. He's only getting 2 free throw attempts per game since the All-Star break, taking 3 threes, making, you know, 1 to 1.5. So it's just not high volume here. And you see, actually, without Markkanen, his average is still 14 points per game. It's 14.5 with him, and the usage rate is only 1.5% higher. Without Kessler, a little bit more points, a little bit more playing time, but still below these props, you know, 15.5 points. And the home road stuff for other guys on the Jazz, like, take a look at Jordan Clarkson, for example, 25% usage at home, 16% on the road, scores twice as much at home. So, I mean, this will be a situation where I just think Sexton and Clarkson will take most of the shots, and Collins, you can float around and hang in the corner for the most part.
Yeah. The backcourt of Sexlark, as they might be known at some point. I like this too. I mean, if he's not going to be getting a ton of offensive boards either, I don't know how he scores, to your point, without having a back to the basket game of really any kind. Just a dude who kind of relies on, more than anything, rim running and open threes in the corner to that sense. It doesn't seem like he's not a guy who's also going to get to the line and get those easy points. And to the point of Kessler getting a bunch more minutes now with obviously Olynyk in Toronto. John Collins needs to sort of have that level of like flying to the basket and rim running and open floor space kind of stuff to really get his. And that's not what you get against a Chicago Bulls team. So I'm going to go with an over for my first one, although my next one is an under. But De'Aaron Fox, I'm going to take the over 5.5 assists. That might get bet up enough that it's just only available at 6.5 at some point. It does feel a little fishy that the books are still hanging on to 5.5s for D Fox. And it's in part because he's just gone over this number so consistently. The books know, just for all of you out there who love to only look at recent numbers, the books know you like to do that. And so oftentimes you're going to get bad stats or bad lines as a result of it. That's the only place that this makes me feel a little bit like this is stinky and a little fishy, but it's so low, dude. And this is a team for D Fox. We're at 5.5 assists, taking the over on that against the Lakers, who have been awful defending point guards all season, continue to be over their last 7, even worse than they are on the season, to be honest with you. He's gone over in 8 of his last 9, 11.5 potential assists during that time frame, and 7.5 assists during that time as well. It is one of those things where, yeah, okay, his potential assists are a little bit low compared to his regular assists. I usually like it to be at about 55% of his potential assists that turn into assists. better. He's obviously been better than that as of late, but I got a couple of reasons for that. One would be the way that the Kings have been scoring a bit more down low when they get into the paint. He's been, especially over the course of these last 8 or 9 games where he's been diming up a ton, he's been getting into the lane, having guys come up and have to double team him and just dropping it right off or kicking it into the corner. And those are two places that the Lakers have been vulnerable, especially over their last 10 games or so, is that they have they have the 8th worst opponent paint field goal percentage over the course of their last 5 to 10 games as well. And Sac has been going into the paint a lot, 2nd in paint frequency over that time frame, 7th in field goal percentage once they get into the paint as well. And they're getting a ton of easy buckets because D Fox is getting by his guys. And that other spot that I mentioned, the corner 3, that's where Keegan Murray's shooting from. That's where Harrison Barnes is shooting from. Even at times Huerter, although he's been a bit more above the break, to be honest, than in the corner. Either way, like the assists have been there for him on the 3-pointer as well because of that. And that is a weakness for the Lakers right now. The other thing with them is like, yeah, the Lakers defense up top, man, it's bad. They've given up the 2nd most assists per game to point guards over their last 7 and the 6th most points in that time frame. They allow the 6th most assists per game on the season as a whole. They have not shown a propensity to switch very well. They really are just trying to either force you off the line into Anthony Davis, or they're trying to essentially just give up threes to the guys that they don't think can shoot. And it hasn't really been that successful for them. They've had a few spurts here and there of looking okay on defense from behind the 3-point line, but not overall. And that's what I look at here more than anything. One thing I want to shout out too is Courtside Pal has been an awesome tool that I've been using because it does a little bit more than just go into how does this team battle positions specifically. They go, well, like me, I don't think James Harden should be listed as a shooting guard. I don't think Josh Giddey should be listed as a shooting guard, right? And Courtside Pal takes that type of stuff into account, labels these guys with sort of how they do in terms of playmaking, how they do in terms of scoring, etc., and where they score from on the floor. And the Lakers, to the type of the player type that De'Aaron Fox does give up the 7th most assists per game, the 5th most points per game. So it's just a further proof that like D Fox is playing above the break and then driving into the lane, and that's where the Lakers are weakest. So I'll take the over 5.5. If you get plus 115, for instance, on over 6.5, I don't think that's a terrible bet. It's just there's not quite as much of an edge once you get to 7 versus the 6 for him, which feels a lot more like it is a much safer bet for him to take the over 5.5. So if you wanted to throw like 1.2 units on it to get a bit more back on your money because it's minus 140, I totally get that. But put him in some stuff on Prize Picks, however you want to play it. I think you got to get 6 assists for De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah, numbers crazy low to the point that it does make you raise an eyebrow. Like, why are you giving us this number? A De'Aaron Fox type himself has averaged 7 assists along with 32 points against this Lakers defense in his last 4. So that is the 1-to-1 comp. And yeah, the Lakers they're really bad in rotation. If you can get them scrambling, right? That's their biggest weakness. So yeah, if the Kings can knock down these potential assists, Fox should rack them up. Memphis is at Philly here with the Sixers on a back-to-back and probably going to be missing Tyrese Maxey. I'm going to attack that by just taking our old pal Vince Williams Jr. over 20.5 points and rebounds. I think you can just bet the rebounds as well. It's 6.5 if you like the number better. But this is plus 100 when you tack on the points. So look, the Grizzlies already pretty thin, and then some of these guys that have been filling in on the wing, Zaire Williams, Scottie Pippen Jr., and Yuta Watanabe are all ruled out. And Triple J is questionable, could legit miss. I mean, they don't really have an incentive to play him through any injury here. Both of these teams are just awful rebounding teams, especially down the stretch here, especially because the Grizz have been playing so much Triple J and they don't have anybody else. So Vince Williams has picked up the slack, 10.5 rebound chances per game since the start of February, 18.5% defensive rebounding rate. And we expect Philly to miss a lot more shots without Maxey on top of already obviously missing Embiid. They've averaged 108 a game, shooting 47 and 33% in their last 5. In that situation, lost all 5, by the way. They averaged the 4th fewest rebounds since the All-Star break overall. Grizz, while they haven't done a great job overall, they do have the 4th highest contested rebounding rate since the break. So, they still have try-hard guys like our guy Vince, who's going to get in down there, mix it up. For what it's worth, on the road, 9 straight double-digit scoring outputs, average 15.8 and 5.7 rebounds. So I think for getting plus money here, against the Sixers team that's a little tired, is playing veterans like Nick Batum heavy minutes because they just don't have anybody else on the wing. Like there'll be opportunities just to out hustle them, grab some boards in a game that's probably going to be pretty low scoring, like most Grizzlies games are these days.
Yep, 100%. I mean, you said it. It's our guy. I can't help but bet on Vince Will when we get a good opportunity like this one. Triple J questionable would be wonderful if he's out. Like if he's out, then this is super, super valuable. And I think it's almost just worth a hit on that premise anyway, right? Because we've seen that when there's maybe 2 NBA players on the court for the Grizzlies, because a guy like Triple J is out, Vince Will is one of them, right? And he's one of the only dudes with a future on this team. Although Gigi Jackson might have one as well, but he's just the minutes are sporadic, and it's Vince Will with the minutes and the usage that you talk about that you just love no matter what. So I honestly don't even hate it if you want to take some assists in this situation for him because of how much he's just going to have the ball in his hands as sort of the LeBron James of
stupid
the Grizzlies.
High 5.5 is the line with and juiced up. Yeah, like no way.
It got up. Okay,
yeah,
I thought it was 4.5. I don't mind 4.5, but yeah, once you get 6. Still, I mean, honestly, like if Triple J doesn't play, then that's not a bad number is kind of the main point here. Because like I said, he just turns into the LeBron James from the standpoint of like he can do whatever he wants at that point. He's the only dude with the ball in his hands. So let me close it out with an under because Tyus Jones' assists are too high. And honestly, like he probably is going to score. It's only at 11.5 points. So it's one of those things where like maybe you want to take an over on his points and an under on his assists, like however you want to play that, because that's how this goes when you play against this Magic team. First of all, like Fultz is back for the Magic, who after another missed game, which happens consistently. So I say he's back, but he'll probably miss the next game. Whatever. Point is he's playing in this one. And when he does play, that defensive rating for the Magic drops a lot. 109 defensive rating with him this season, 114.5 defensive rating without him. And those are both significant sample sizes because he's played basically the same amount of games that he's missed this year. So, that's why there's that clear, stark difference that you can actually take into consideration and use with merit. Orlando limits point guards to the 4th fewest assists. If you want to throw the rebounds in there as well, it's 11.5. I prefer it at like 12.5 to go under it, but because there is the possibility that he just gets rebounds. Honestly, he's done that a couple times against the Magic where he just randomly gets like 4 rebounds in a game against them. And I don't really feel like having to bet on whether or not that happens, to be honest with you, because I think there will be a good amount of missed shots. Magic on a back-to-back. But they do, like I said, have Fultz rested, which is huge for that D rating. And they do limit point guards to like the 3rd fewest rebounds per game. It's just, it would have to be because the Wizards are missing, for instance, like long threes, and then Tyus Jones is coming in and getting these rebounds. I don't want to deal with that, right? So I'm just going under 9.5 on the assists, and I think we're getting a good number to go under here because he's gone bonkers over the course of the last like 6 games or so. He's had a few, other than the last 2, by the way, where he's gone cleanly under this number. But prior to that, we were talking about him playing against Cleveland, got 10 assists in another weird game between those 2 teams, and then 17 assists versus Golden State. But by the way, he had like 19 potential assists versus Golden State. So it wasn't even like, it was just like, oh, he's just diving all over the place and getting guys wide open. It was more just like the Wizards made a lot of shots and the Warriors don't really have much defense above the break because of Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. 11 versus the Lakers as well. I mentioned to you earlier why I like D Fox to go over an assist because of how much the Lakers allow point guards and really everybody to get assists against them. But that's not quite the case here against Orlando, who is a top 7 team against limit in terms of limiting assists, whatever position you are. And with a low total like this, like I've done this a couple times, right? You know that I like to go under rebounds and assists for the opposing point guard against Orlando and have no problem going over on the points for the opposing point guard because that is where they give up the most. They actually give up the 3rd most points to point guards on the season. Not quite as good above the break is Orlando, which is a huge part of that. But they do play that really stifling defense as soon as you step foot inside the 3-point line. That's why you don't get mid-range shots against them. That's why you definitely don't get all the way to the rim against them. And it's not even necessarily because of the rim protection. To be honest, the rim protection was better when Goga Batadze was getting more minutes. And Wendell Carter Jr. has not been quite the same rim protector that we've seen him be at times, as his game has sort of like progressively sort of stepped further and further away from the basket, especially on offense. But more importantly for this one, with Fultz guarding him, with the height advantage that he has, with the fact that the Orlando team is so good at limiting you as soon as you get into the paint, that's why Tyus Jones has gone under against this team like 6 of his last 7 times that he's played them. And I would continue to just expect more of the same. I don't need to overcomplicate it more than that.
Yeah, I like just sticking with the assists because looking at the back-to-back numbers for Orlando, like their offense is way worse, and therefore you give up 6 more rebounds per game, missing a
Yeah.
lot of shots, but they also foul more with those slow defensive legs, and that's pretty much the MO, right? They give up the same amount of free throw attempts as they do assists on back-to-backs, and that's what they do in wins. Like that's their recipe. Like we will make you earn everything. Like that's why they give up the fewest assists per game. In a nutshell, is just like, yeah, everything's going to be physical. This game is going to be low scoring. It's the freaking Wizards, and the total is down. So yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with that one.
Yeah, and these Magic games on the road lately have been averaging like a buck 06 or so. So there's not going to be very many opportunities for assists in general for these dudes. And yeah, there's been Tice is at 17 and a half potential assists over his last 7 games. That's just that's not going to be the case here against this Orlando Magic team. So that is all the time we have for you in Play It Props, though. Continue to follow along, subscribe to that page if you would, and check out the Best Bets video that we also have up for you as we do each and every weekday. Until we see you next, happy betting.